So you want to start a podcast? Why? Hi friends, Sebastian here with the Podcast Launch Lab. How many times have you said to yourself, I really should start a podcast. I just don't know how. I don't know how to create my show and get it into iTunes and find a microphone. And well, you've come to the right place. Because in this video, I'm going to give you 6 tips. It was originally 5, but I decided I needed one more. So we're going with 6 tips on how to start a podcast. Once we run through these 6 tips, you're going to have everything you need in order to start your podcast. Let's get started. All right, before any show is going anywhere, you actually have to have a name for the show. That's right. You want it to be something witty, something informative, something that really tells the story in just the name of your podcast. Now, I always suggest, which some of us don't like to do because that little ego gets in the way, but I always suggest reaching out to friends and people whose opinion that you trust and ask them if they like the show name. If they bark at it or have any initial concerns, well, take heed to that advice, because if they're concerned with the name or it doesn't really resonate or jive with them, my goodness, what is it going to do in the wonderful universe of podcasts? So, come up with something that you think is crafty and then run it by a friend or two and see if they aren't willing to give you some constructive criticism on why that name may not work, and don't get your feelings hurt in the process. Feedback allows us to grow. All right, so you've chosen a name, you've asked a few friends, you've gotten some unwarranted feedback, you got your feelings hurt, maybe you didn't. Well, now you've got a name. Now it's time to create your branding for the show, and that includes your cover art. So your podcast cover art, when you pull up podcast in iTunes and in Spotify, it's the first image and the only image that you see associated with the podcast. That, my friends, is your album art, cover art, podcast art, whatever you'd like to refer to it as. It is, in fact, your podcast logo, and very, very important to have. Without one, you're not even allowed to submit your show to iTunes. So as soon as you've gotten your name all squared away and chosen, it's time to begin the design process of putting together your album art, podcast cover art, whatever you'd like to call it. Well, Sebastian, that sounds fine and dandy, but where does one start? Well, if you feel like you've got a little bit of a graphic design thumb, aka graphic designer wannabe like myself, thanks to my friends at canva.com, anyone can become a graphic designer in one afternoon if you're willing to put the time in and you've got the right eye for it. Now, I'm always a huge fan that if you're not good at graphic design or you're not good at something, well, go find somebody that is good at it that can get the job done for you. There's a couple websites that you can go and visit. Freelancers are phenomenal at being able to create cover art for your podcast, aka your podcast logo. You can go to a website called 99designs.com. You can submit your project idea and people will compete for the work. You can go to freelancer.com or fiverr.com or upwork.com. These are all freelancer websites with plenty of graphic designers willing, able, and waiting for you to approach them and ask them if they can help you with your cover art for your podcast show. Podcast cover art, depending on which designer you work with and what company you decide to go with, can range anywhere from $10 up to $250. It really all depends on what you want in the project and who you decide to work with. But those are my initial recommendations as far as making sure that your podcast branding, your podcast logo, your podcast album art becomes a reality. Because once you have that, well, you've got a name, you've got your cover art. Now you can start talking about the show before you even start recording episodes. Kind of puts you on the hook before you even record one episode. It's like, well, I've already started to talk about it. I better record some episodes. So this is a very, very important and key part of launching a podcast. After this step, then you've got a name and you've got a logo and you've got something to talk about and brand as far as what your show is going to be. Exciting, exciting stuff. All right, next up, you got to buy a microphone. Well, you don't have to. Technically, you can be in a very quiet place like I'm in right now. If you're looking for a quiet place, maybe in your closet, if there's carpet or a bunch of clothes and there's space, obviously. Once you go in a tiny little closet where there's no space and attempt to record. But if you can go in your closet at home and you use your earpods that come with your iPhone or any other wire-connected headphones with a microphone, you can record your podcast with that. 100% okay. In fact, you don't even need headphones. If you're in a quiet place, the iPhone has a phenomenal mic. So utilize it. If not, if you want to kind of step up your microphone game, you can use what's called a USB mic. You're seeing a picture of that pop up on the screen. It's exactly what you think. It's a microphone that plugs directly into your laptop or computer via USB. This is going to enable you to get a condensing professional sound versus you just talking into your iPhone or using, your earpods or headphones or whatever the case may be. The sound of your voice is significantly improved upon because you're using a condenser mic. Now, I started utilizing a Blue Snowball mic when I first started. You're seeing that pop up on the screen right now. That'll run you about $50 or $60. Find it on Amazon or wherever podcast equipment is sold, Best Buy, what have you. I get mine on Amazon. You can also utilize Audio Technica, has some basic microphones that will run you between $50 and $75, and they plug right into your computer via USB. Now, this microphone that you're seeing me talk on right now is called a pod mic, made by a company called Rode, R-O-D-E. This mic runs about $99. It is an outstanding microphone, but it does require that you have some sort of interface board that it goes into, because this mic must plug into a board. It doesn't plug in to your USB. Do you see the difference? Another episode on the channel regarding an interface, etc. But if you are somewhat advanced and you say, hey, listen, I want one of the fancy mics and I need a good interface, well, then that's the direction you're looking. But as far as keeping it basic right now, like what are the basics that I need? Well, you really don't need a mic. You need a quiet place and your smartphone. But if you do want to up your game, you can get a Blue Snowball or also a Blue Yeti. That's an upgraded version of the Blue Snowball. That'll run you about $100, $120. Phenomenal mic too. You can put both of those mics on a mic arm like the radio stations have, where the mic will just stand right in front of you, or you can just utilize it on the stand that it comes with. But it's entirely up to you. Again, I want to disclose you do not need a professional microphone, but if you do want to get one, your voice will be improved significantly because you're talking through a condenser mic, and well, it just sounds better all around. All right, now in order to have a podcast, when you record an episode and you get it edited, or you edit it, or you have your editor edit it, whatever the case is, when it's a finished episode and you're ready to have the episode go live, that episode must be uploaded to a podcast hosting platform. There's a few out there, several out there starting to happen now, but the main ones are Libsyn, Acast.com. That's what we use here at the Podcast Launch Lab. Buzzsprout.com, SoundCloud.com. There are a plethora of audio podcast hosting companies available. It'll run you between $10 and $25 a month, contingent upon what the company offers and how they have things set up for podcasters. But you must have an account, because that's where you upload your new episodes to, and then that hosting platform then sends it out to the podcast universe, and that's how your show ends up in iTunes and Spotify and Pandora and iHeartRadio. And I think you're picking up what I'm putting down here. But it's very important that you have a hosting account. So we use Acast.com. There'll be a link in the description below, so you can go check them out. I like them. It helps out with distribution, very easy to use. Their customer service is awesome. So it's really all about what podcast host resonates the best with you. But you got to pick one. It's kind of like a website host. You can't have your podcast live anywhere without it actually being uploaded and have it hosted somewhere. So a lot of these hosting platforms, if you're just doing this part-time, will be free. SoundCloud's got a free option. Acast has a free option. Most of them do, but as you continue to grow your show and you're doing more episodes, you're going to want to have an account that you can upload multiple episodes to, and they will help you get it distributed. In fact, Acast is so cool that they create my podcast into a video and post it on my YouTube channel too, under a specific playlist. So they help out with distribution and marketing and helping you create content as far as your podcast is concerned. Doesn't matter which podcast host you choose, just choose one. Thanks. All right, here's the sixth and final step that I'm going to give you in this video on how to start a podcast. This is the most important part of everything. This is the entire crescendo and conclusion of this video of me teaching you what you need to know to start a podcast today. Are you ready? Drum roll, please. Brrr. Tip number 6, you must record your episodes. That's right. I know that might sound elementary and like, duh, Sebastian. Of course, I'm going to record my episodes. That's how I create a podcast. However, it's way easier said than done is what I was trying to say there. Yes, that's exactly what I was trying to say. Way easier said than done. Your biggest hurdle as a podcaster from the day you start to every single episode you record will in fact be your consistency and your ability to continue to crank out new content, new episodes, stay consistent, build your community, stick with it, even when you don't want to stick with it, because that right there, friends, is the only solution and only way that your podcast is not going to end up in the podcast graveyard. Well, I hope these 6 tips have helped you really better understand exactly what it takes for you to start a podcast today. Now, you might still have questions, so go back, watch this video all over again. And if you've still got questions, or if you've got questions before you do that, go ahead and leave them in the comments below as I respond to each and every one of you lovely people. It is my distinct pleasure. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. That way you'll get updates as new videos become available